The Riverside estate was exactly the kind of venue my brother Daniel would choose for his engagement party. All gleaming marble floors, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the water, and the kind of understated elegance that screamed, "We have money and taste." 200 guests mingled in the grand ballroom, champagne flutes catching the afternoon light, everyone dressed to impress. I stood near the dessert table wearing a simple navy dress and minimal jewelry, watching Daniel and his fiancée Vanessa hold court near the champagne fountain. They were a striking couple. Daniel in his custom suit, Vanessa in a designer gown that probably cost more than most people's cars. They radiated success, confidence, and the absolute certainty that their lives were unfolding exactly as they should. Margot. My mother appeared beside me, her smile bright, but her eyes doing a quick critical assessment of my outfit. "You made it. We weren't sure you'd be able to get away from your work." She said work, the way other people might say, unfortunate hobby. "Wouldn't miss Daniel's engagement party," I said, setting down my sparkling water. "Where should I put my gift?" "Oh, the gift table is over there." "Thank you, sweetheart." She hesitated. "You came alone?" "Nathaniel's running late," I said. "Publisher meeting." "Nathaniel," she repeated vaguely, as if she couldn't quite place the name I'd mentioned at least a dozen times. "That's nice, dear. We'll mingle, meet people. You never know who might be single." She drifted away before I could respond. I told my family I was in a serious relationship 6 months ago. I'd mentioned Nathaniel's name multiple times, but they never asked questions, never showed curiosity. They'd already decided I was perpetually single and that any mention of a relationship was just wishful thinking. My younger sister Hannah found me near the gift table, her 3-year-old daughter balanced on her hip. "Margot, you look nice." "Very understated." "Thanks," I said, though I knew understated wasn't a compliment in this context. "So still single?" she asked, not unkindly. "Mom said something about a Nathaniel, but I figured that was just, hope." "Not hope," I said calmly. "He's real. He's just running late." "Sure," she said with a sympathetic smile. "Well, there are some cute single guys here. Daniel's college friend Brad is recently divorced. I could introduce you." "I'm fine, Hannah. I'm just saying you're 35. You can't be too picky anymore. You need to be realistic about your options." Before I could respond, Daniel's voice boomed across the room. He was standing on the small stage at the front, microphone in hand, Vanessa beaming beside him. "Everyone, can I have your attention?" He waited for the crowd to quiet. "First, thank you all for coming to celebrate with Vanessa and me. Your support means everything." Applause rippled through the room. "Second, I want to take a moment to thank my family for being here. My parents who taught me what real love looks like. My sister Hannah who gave me my beautiful niece, and my sister Margot." He paused, his expression shifting to something like pity. "Who's still searching for her person?" "We're all rooting for you, Margot." The crowd laughed, not cruelly, but the way people laugh at shared understanding. Poor Margot, still single at 35. In fact, Daniel continued, warming to his theme, "At 35 and still single, Margot, we're starting to worry." "But hey, there's someone out there for everyone, right?" More laughter. I felt every eye in the room slide toward me, then quickly away. "You'll die alone," Vanessa's stage whispered into the microphone, clearly thinking it was off. The feedback carried her words across the entire ballroom. She looked mortified for half a second, then laughed. "Kidding. Obviously kidding." But the damage was done. The room had heard it. People were looking at me with expressions ranging from pity to amusement. "Maybe lower your standards," Vanessa added, trying to make it sound like helpful advice. "I mean, we can't all marry our soulmates. Sometimes you just need to be practical." Everyone laughed again. Daniel put his arm around her, both of them looking at me like I was a charity case in need of their wisdom. I checked my watch. 4:47 p.m. Nathaniel's publisher meeting should be wrapping up any minute now. "Seriously though, Margot," Daniel said, his tone shifting to concerned big brother, "you're a great person. Smart, funny, accomplished in your own way, but you need to put yourself out there. Lower those walls. Be more approachable. Right now, you're going to end up like Aunt Carol, 55, and still talking about the one that got away." The comparison to Aunt Carol, Our family's cautionary tale about the dangers of being too picky drew knowing nods from relatives. I'm fine, Daniel, I called out calmly from my spot near the dessert table. Are you, though? Vanessa asked, her voice dripping with concern. Because we love you, Margot. We want you to be happy. But happiness requires being realistic. You can't wait forever for some fantasy man who doesn't exist. He exists, I said simply. Sure, he does, Daniel laughed. Look, I get it. You want what Vanessa and I have, but you have to be willing to compromise, to settle a little. That's how real relationships work. I took a sip of my sparkling water and glanced at my watch again. 4:49 p.m. My cousin Rebecca approached, her expression sympathetic. Don't let them get to you. They're just trying to help in their own misguided way. I know, I said. But honestly, Margot, are you dating anyone? Because if not, I have a colleague who's single. He's 42. Decent job, divorced, but no kids. I could set something up. I'm engaged, I said quietly. She blinked. What? I'm engaged. Have been for 3 months. She looked at my left hand, which was bare. Where's your ring? Being resized, I lied. The truth was I didn't wear it to family events because I'd wanted to see if anyone would ask about my relationship instead of just assuming I was perpetually alone. No one had asked. You're engaged. Rebecca repeated, still processing. To who? Nathaniel Cross. Nathaniel Cross, she said slowly. Like the Nathaniel Cross, the author. Yes, she said flatly. Margot, come on. Nathaniel Cross is one of the most famous authors in the world. He's not, I mean, you don't. She couldn't finish any of the sentences she was starting. He's running late, I said. Publisher meeting. He should be here any minute. Right, she said, clearly not believing me. Well, I need to find my husband. She walked away quickly, and I saw her immediately pull out her phone, probably texting someone about my delusion. Daniel had moved on from his speech and was now mingling near the bar with his groomsmen. I could see him holding court, probably telling stories, everyone laughing at his jokes. He'd always been the golden child, successful lawyer, beautiful fiancé, perfect life trajectory. My phone buzzed in my clutch. A text from Nathaniel. Just finished. On my way. 10 minutes. Sorry, love. The contract negotiations ran long. I typed back. No rush. Take your time. Another text immediately. Are they being awful? I smiled. Define awful. His response. I'll make an entrance. Give them something to talk about. That was Nathaniel. Always with a flair for the dramatic. It's what made his books so compelling and made him so good at creating memorable moments. Margot, sweetheart, my father appeared. His expression kind but pitying. Daniel means well. He just wants you to be happy. I am happy, Dad. Are you? Because 35 is, well, it's getting late for children, for marriage, for building a family. We just worry that you're being too selective. I'm not too selective, I said. I just know what I want. Sometimes what we want isn't realistic, he said gently. Your mother and I, we didn't marry our dream partners. We married good people who we could build lives with. That's what matters, not some fairy tale romance. That's depressing, Dad. It's practical, he corrected. And practical is what gets you through life, not fantasies about perfect love. Vanessa appeared with a group of her sorority sisters, all of them gorgeous and polished. They descended on me like a well-meaning, but slightly predatory flock of birds. Margot. Vanessa air-kissed both my cheeks. Ladies, this is Daniel's older sister. Isn't she sweet? Sweet was clearly code for unmarried and tragic. Vanessa was just telling us you're single, one of them said, a blonde named Ashley. That's so brave, embracing the single life at your age. I'm not single, I said. Oh. Vanessa looked confused. But you came alone. My fiancé is running late. The word fiancé landed like a bomb. All 5 women stared at me with identical expressions of shock. You're engaged, Vanessa said carefully, as if I might be delusional and she needed to handle me gently. Since when? 3 months ago, I said. 3 months, she repeated. And you didn't tell anyone? I mentioned it, I said, several times actually. No one asked follow-up questions. Who is he? Ashley demanded. Nathaniel Cross. The name hung in the air. Several of the women pulled out their phones, probably to Google him. The author, one of them, breathed. "You're saying you're engaged to Nathaniel Cross, the best-selling author, the one who writes those incredible thrillers?" "That's the one," I confirmed. "Bullshit," Ashley said. "I follow him on Instagram. He's gorgeous and famous and probably dates models." "Why would he?" She stopped herself, but the implication was clear. "Why would he date you?" "Believe what you want," I said calmly. Vanessa looked uncertain. "Margot, if this is some kind of coping mechanism, we understand. The pressure of being single can make people create fantasies." "I'm not creating fantasies," I interrupted. "I'm engaged to Nathaniel Cross. We live together. We're writing a book together. We're getting married next spring." "You're writing a book," Vanessa repeated slowly. "You, Margot Bennett, are writing a book with Nathaniel Cross." "I am," I confirmed. "What do you even do for a living?" Ashley asked. "I thought you were a freelance writer or something." "I am a writer," I said. "Yeah, but like what kind of writer?" "Blog posts, social media captions." "Novels," I said simply. "I write novels." "Under what name?" Vanessa challenged. "Because I've never seen a book by Margot Bennett." "I write under a pseudonym," I said. "Convenient," Ashley muttered. My phone buzzed. "Pulling up now. Brace yourself." I smiled and checked my watch. 4:57 p.m. Perfect timing. "Look," Vanessa said, her tone shifting to something more aggressive, "I don't know what kind of game you're playing, but it's not cute. Making up a famous fiancé because you're embarrassed about being single. That's just sad, Margot. We're trying to help you, and you're throwing it in our faces with this ridiculous lie." "It's not a lie," I said. "Then where is he?" she demanded. "Where's this famous fiancé of yours?" The ballroom doors opened. Nathaniel Cross walked in, and the effect was immediate. Conversations stopped. Heads turned. Someone gasped audibly. He was impossible not to notice. 6 feet 2 inches, dark hair slightly tousled from the wind, wearing a perfectly tailored charcoal suit that probably cost more than the entire champagne budget for this party. At 42, he had that distinguished thing going on, the kind of mature, confident presence that came from having written 14 best-selling novels and being on the cover of Time magazine twice. But what really made people stare was that they recognized him. Nathaniel Cross wasn't just famous in literary circles. He was mainstream famous. His books were adapted into major films. He'd been on talk shows. His face had been on billboards for his last book tour. He scanned the ballroom, his eyes finding mine immediately, and smiled. That smile, the one that had made him People magazine's sexiest author 3 years running. He walked directly toward me, his path cutting through the frozen crowd. People literally stepped aside to let him pass. "Darling," he said, his British accent making the words sound impossibly elegant. He leaned down and kissed my cheek, lingering just long enough to make it clear this was no casual greeting. "I'm terribly sorry I'm late. The publisher meeting ran over. They needed signatures for our co-authored book." He said it loudly enough that nearby guests could hear. "Our book," Vanessa said faintly. Nathaniel turned to her, extending his hand with practiced charm. "You must be Daniel's fiancé. Congratulations on the engagement. Margot speaks highly of you." She shook his hand mechanically, still staring at him like he might be a hallucination. "You're Nathaniel Cross," Ashley breathed. "Like the actual Nathaniel Cross." "Guilty," he said with a self-deprecating smile. Then he turned back to me, took my left hand, and held it up. "Although I notice you're not wearing your ring, darling. Is it still being resized?" On my finger was a ring that definitely hadn't been there 5 minutes ago. A stunning cushion-cut diamond, easily 5 carats, set in platinum with smaller diamonds along the band. He must have put it on when he kissed my cheek. The ring caught the light, throwing prismatic colors across the wall. 5-carat diamond, someone whispered. "That's at least $150,000. Closer to $200,000, another voice corrected. "That's Tiffany. The setting alone is probably $50,000. Nathaniel smiled at me. "I picked it up from the jeweler's this morning. Perfect fit now." He kissed my hand, his lips warm against my knuckles, and the gesture was so natural, so intimate that several people nearby made soft sounds of appreciation. My brother Daniel appeared, his champagne flute halfway to his lips, frozen in place as he stared at Nathaniel. "Holy shit," he said. "You're Nathaniel Cross." "I am," Nathaniel confirmed, extending his hand. "You must be Daniel. Margot's told me so much about you. Congratulations on your engagement." Daniel shook his hand mechanically, his brain clearly struggling to process what he was seeing. You're dating my sister?" "Engaged to her." "Actually," Nathaniel corrected pleasantly, 3 months now, though we've been together for just over a year." "A year?" Daniel repeated. 18 months technically," I said. "We met at a writer's conference." "You're a writer?" Nathaniel said to Daniel. "No, I'm a lawyer. Margot's the writer, apparently." "Oh, you didn't know?" Nathaniel looked genuinely surprised. "Margot's brilliant. She's been my co-author on my last 3 novels. You must have read them. They all hit #1 on the Times bestseller list." The crowd that had gathered around us was growing. People were pulling out phones, taking pictures, whispering frantically. "Co-author," Daniel said slowly. "You've been co-writing Nathaniel Cross novels." "I have," I confirmed. "We work under his name because he's the established brand. But the books are collaborations. Story development, character work, actual writing. We split everything 50-50ths. "The books on my nightstand," Daniel said, his voice hollow. "The ones I've been reading, the ones I quote. You wrote those." "We wrote those," I corrected, gesturing to Nathaniel. "Together." Nathaniel smiled warmly at my brother. "Margot's the one with the real talent. Honestly, I handle plot mechanics and pacing, but she creates the emotional depth. The character work that everyone praises. That's pure Margot." "But you never said anything," Daniel protested, looking at me. "You never told us you were writing best-selling novels." "I mentioned it several times," I said calmly. "Last Christmas, I told you I was working on a book. You said, 'That's nice. Good for you,' and changed the subject. At Easter, I mentioned I was collaborating with another author. Mom said, 'How sweet, a little hobby project.' No one ever asked follow-up questions. 'Because we thought you were self-publishing romance novels or something,' Hannah said, having appeared with the growing crowd, not co-authoring legitimate bestsellers." "Why would you think that?" I asked. "Because she gestured vaguely at me. You know, quiet, understated. You don't act like a successful author." "What does a successful author act like?" Nathaniel asked, his tone curious, but with an edge. "Not like Margot," Vanessa said before she could stop herself. Then she flushed, realizing how that sounded. "I see," Nathaniel said coolly. "Well, I assure you, Margot is one of the most successful authors I know. Our last book sold 1.2 million copies in hardcover alone. She made approximately $2.3 million from that book. The one before that, $2.7 million. We're both doing quite well." $2.3 million, my father said faintly. "Dollars. Per book." Nathaniel confirmed, "We've released 3 books together. Margot's earned about $7 million over the past 4 years, not counting foreign rights, film options, and subsidiary rights, which add another several million." The silence was absolute. $10 million, my mother whispered. "Our daughter has made $10 million writing books." "More than that," Nathaniel said, "but who's counting?" Daniel looked like he might be sick. "The books on my nightstand. Shadow Protocol, The Midnight Doctrine, Fractured State. Those are yours." "Ours," I confirmed. "Mine and Nathaniel's." "I gave you Shadow Protocol for your birthday last year," he said hollowly. "I said it was my favorite book of the year. I said the author was a genius. I had no idea it was you. You never asked who wrote it," I pointed out. "You just saw Nathaniel's name on the cover and assumed." "Because that's how books work," he protested. "The name on the cover is the author." "Usually, yes," Nathaniel agreed. "But in our case, we both contribute equally. Margot prefers to work behind the scenes. She doesn't like publicity, doesn't enjoy book tours, doesn't want to be recognized in airports. So we agreed to publish under my name, split the money and credit 50-50, and let me handle the public-facing aspects." "That seems unfair to you," Vanessa said to me, as if she'd suddenly found her voice. "You do half the work and he gets all the credit." "I get half the money and none of the stress," I corrected. Nathaniel deals with interviews, book tours, publicity events, social media. I get to just write. It's the perfect arrangement for both of us. Plus, Nathaniel added, taking my hand again, I get to spend my life with the most talented woman I've ever met. That seems like fair compensation for a little extra publicity work. The way he looked at me made several women in the crowd sigh audibly. How long have you been doing this? Dad asked. Co-writing. For years, I said. We met at a thriller writers' conference. I was there to research for a solo project I was working on. Nathaniel was the keynote speaker. We started talking about story structure, realized we had complementary skills, and decided to try collaborating. The first book we wrote together sold better than anything either of us had done solo. So you kept doing it, my mother said, still trying to process. We kept doing it, Nathaniel confirmed. And somewhere along the way, we fell in love. I proposed 6 months ago. She said yes 3 months ago. She's very thoughtful about big decisions. He smiled at me warmly. Wedding is planned for next spring. Tuscany. Small ceremony, just close friends and family. Tuscany, Hannah repeated. Like Italy. That's where Tuscany is, Nathaniel said with gentle humor. Daniel was staring at the books on his phone screen, all our books, the covers familiar to him. You wrote all of these. My sister wrote all of these. We wrote all of those, I corrected again. It's a collaboration. But you never told us, he said, and there was hurt in his voice. You let us think you were struggling. You let us pity you. You pitied me without asking if I needed it, I said gently. You assumed I was struggling because I'm single or was single and quiet about my work. You never asked what I actually did. You just decided. That's not fair, Vanessa protested. We asked about your life. We invited you to things. You asked if I'd found a real job yet, I countered. You suggested I lower my standards to find a man. You told me I'd die alone. Those aren't questions about my life. Those are judgments about my life. Nathaniel's arms slipped around my waist, protective and intimate. I think what Margot is saying is that you all made assumptions without gathering facts. You saw a single woman in her 30s and decided she must be failing. You never considered that she might be succeeding quietly. We didn't know you existed, Daniel said to Nathaniel. She never mentioned you. She mentioned me at Christmas, Nathaniel corrected. I was there. We spent 3 hours at your parents' house. You talked about yourself the entire time and never asked me a single question beyond my name. The accuracy of that statement landed like a physical blow. Daniel flushed red. I was there at Easter, too, Nathaniel continued. And at your parents' anniversary party in June. Each time I was introduced as Margot's boyfriend. Each time you talked about your lives without asking about ours. So yes, we were there. You just didn't notice. That's not Mom started, then stopped. You didn't notice, I finished. You didn't notice because you'd already decided my life wasn't interesting. Single woman, freelance writer. No impressive title or obvious success markers. You wrote me off without looking closer. But you're engaged to Nathaniel Cross, Ashley said, as if this fundamental fact still didn't compute. Nathaniel Cross, who's on Forbes' highest-paid authors list. Who's worth what, $50 million? $72 million, actually, Nathaniel said pleasantly. Though most of that's tied up in investments and real estate. But yes, I'm comfortable financially. And you're getting married, Vanessa said to me. Next spring in Tuscany. We are, I confirmed. You're all invited, of course. Save the dates went out last week. Perhaps you haven't checked your mail. Mom pulled out her phone, typing frantically. When? Last week. One day, I said. Cream-colored envelopes, embossed lettering. Hard to miss. I could see several family members pulling out their phones, presumably checking with spouses or searching through mail piles at home. We got something from Italy, Hannah said slowly. I thought it was junk mail. I didn't open it. Probably our save the date, Nathaniel said. We hired a calligrapher. They're quite beautiful, if I do say so. Daniel set down his champagne glass, his hand shaking slightly. I need to sit down. We moved to a nearby table and the crowd followed, creating an impromptu circle of stunned family members. Nathaniel kept his arm around me, occasionally dropping kisses on my temple or squeezing my hand, little gestures that made it abundantly clear this wasn't some publicity stunt or fake relationship. "Tell us about the books," Dad said finally. "How do you write them together?" "We outline together," I explained. "Spend weeks breaking down plot points, character arcs, themes. Then we divide chapters based on whose strengths match the content. Nathaniel writes the action sequences, the procedural elements. I write the emotional beats, the character relationships, the psychological depth. Then we swap, edit each other's work, push each other to be better. It's genuinely collaborative. Neither of us could write these books alone. They require both our skill sets." "And the money?" Jennifer asked bluntly. "You really split it 50-50 after the publisher and agent take their cuts?" "Yes," I confirmed. "Everything's split down the middle. We're partners in every sense." "Show me the contracts," Daniel said suddenly. "I'm a lawyer. I want to see the actual contracts." Nathaniel raised an eyebrow. "You don't believe us?" "I believe you're Nathaniel Cross," Daniel said. "I'm having trouble believing my sister is your co-author and your fiancé." "Daniel," Mom said sharply. "No, it's fine," Nathaniel said. He pulled out his phone and brought up a document. "Our most recent publishing contract. See the author line? It says Nathaniel Cross and MJ Sterling. MJ Sterling is Margot's pen name. See the payment terms. 50-50 split of all advances and royalties." Daniel took the phone, reading carefully. His expression shifted from skeptical to stunned. "This is real. This is an actual contract with a major publishing house. For our next book," I said. "Comes out next fall, $3.5 million advance split between us." $3.5 million, Hannah repeated. "For one book. Plus royalties," Nathaniel added, "if it sells well, which historically our books do." My phone buzzed. A text from my publicist. Pictures from the engagement party are already online. Twitter is losing its mind. Hashtag Nathaniel Cross is trending. "Call me." I showed Nathaniel, who laughed. "I told you I'd make an entrance." "What's trending?" Vanessa asked. "Nathaniel's name," I explained. "Because people at this party have been posting photos online. It's probably going viral." "Going viral?" she repeated faintly. "Nathaniel's quite famous," I said. "People tend to notice when he shows up places. That's one reason I don't wear my ring usually. I prefer privacy." "But you're wearing it now," Ashley observed. "Because my family needed to see it," I said simply. "Needed proof that I'm not, in fact, going to die alone." The reference to Daniel's earlier comment made him wince. "Margot, I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I was an ass. I said horrible things. I had no idea. That I was successful," I finished. "That I was in love. That I was happy." "You had no idea because you never asked," I said. "I thought I was helping," he protested. "Tough love. Trying to motivate you to make changes." "I didn't need motivation," I said. I needed family who was curious about my actual life instead of the life they imagined I had. Nathaniel checked his watch. "Darling, we have dinner reservations at 8. We should probably start making our exit." "Dinner reservations?" Mom asked. "You're leaving." "We came to celebrate Daniel's engagement," Nathaniel said pleasantly. "We've done that. Now we have our own plans." Anniversary dinner. 1 year since I proposed the first time. Margot said no. By the way, took me 6 months to convince her to say yes. "You proposed twice?" Jennifer asked. 3 times, actually, Nathaniel admitted. First time at Christmas, too cliché. Second time in March, caught her off guard, not romantic enough. Third time in June. Planned a whole weekend. Finally got it right. He rented an entire castle in Scotland. I said it was ridiculously over the top. "You deserved over the top," he said, kissing my hand again. "You deserve everything." The way he looked at me made Vanessa actually tear up. "That's so romantic," she said. "Daniel, why didn't you rent a castle?" "Because I'm not a millionaire best-selling author," Daniel offered weakly. "No, but you could have tried harder," she said. And I could see a seed of doubt being planted. If Margot, quiet, understated Margot, could land someone who rented castles, what did that say about Vanessa's own engagement? We stood to leave, Nathaniel keeping my hand in his. As we walked toward the exit, family members kept approaching with apologies, questions, requests. Can I get a signed book? Cousin Thomas asked Nathaniel. Of course, Nathaniel said graciously. Though you should have Margot sign it too. She wrote half of it. Both of you, Thomas agreed quickly. I've read all your books. They're incredible. We appreciate that, I said. At the door, my mother caught my arm. Margot, please don't leave like this. Stay, let us celebrate with you. Let us get to know Nathaniel properly. We have reservations, Mom, I said gently. Then tomorrow come for brunch. You and Nathaniel, please. We owe you a proper celebration. I looked at Nathaniel, who nodded. Tomorrow works, I said. We'll be there. Thank you, she whispered, hugging me tightly. I'm so sorry, sweetheart. We should have seen you. Really seen you. You see me now, I said. That's what matters. Outside, the evening air was cool and fresh. Nathaniel's driver waited with a black sedan, and we slid into the back seat. Well, Nathaniel said as we pulled away, that was dramatic. You did promise an entrance, I reminded him. Your brother dropped his champagne when he recognized me, Nathaniel laughed. The look on his face when I mentioned our book, priceless. He's been reading our books, I said, quoting them, telling me they're brilliant, while simultaneously telling me to get a real job. The irony, Nathaniel agreed. He laced his fingers through mine. How do you feel? Relieved, I said. Honestly, I'm tired of being invisible, of being pitted, of being treated like my life is somehow less valuable because it doesn't look like theirs. Your life is extraordinary, he said fiercely. You're an incredible writer, an amazing partner, and the love of my life. They're fools for not seeing it sooner. They see it now, I said. Because I walked in and made it impossible to miss, he said. But you were extraordinary before I arrived. You were extraordinary when you were writing alone. You've always been extraordinary. That's why I love you, I said, kissing him. That and your rugged good looks and sparkling personality. Those two, I agreed. My phone was exploding with texts, family members apologizing, asking questions, requesting to meet for coffee. I turned it off. Dinner? Nathaniel asked. Dinner, I confirmed. And then home. I want to work on chapter 12. I had an idea for the interrogation scene. Always working, he said fondly. That's why our books are so good. You never stop pushing to make them better. We never stop pushing, I corrected. It's a partnership. The best partnership, he agreed. Later that night, after dinner at an intimate French restaurant and back at home, we shared a beautiful brownstone in a quiet neighborhood. We sat together on the couch, laptop between us, working on our next book. Your family loves you, Nathaniel said during a break. They just didn't know how to show it. They loved their idea of me, I said. Now they'll have to love the real me. Everyone should love the real you, he said. You're remarkable. Says the man who rented a castle to propose. Worth every penny, he said. Though you should know, the publisher called. They want us to do a joint book tour for the next release. Both of us. They think it's time to reveal the collaboration. Public appearances, I said, making a face. I'll be right there with you, he promised. Every interview, every signing, every event. We'll do it together. Together, I repeated. The word felt right. Everything with Nathaniel felt right. My phone buzzed. I turned it back on to check messages. A text from Daniel. I'm sorry doesn't cover it, but I'm sorry and I'm proud of you and I can't wait to read the next book. I showed Nathaniel. Progress, he said. Progress, I agreed. Tomorrow we'd go to brunch. My family would ask 1,000 questions. They'd want to know everything about our relationship, our books, our life together. They'd probably be overwhelming and slightly invasive and definitely trying too hard to make up for lost time. But that was okay, because tonight, in this moment, sitting with the man I loved, working on a story we were creating together, I was exactly where I wanted to be. Not dying alone, not lowering my standards, not settling, living a life I'd built with intention, love, and quiet determination. And if my family finally understood that, that was just the cherry on top of an already pretty spectacular existence. Chapter 12, Nathaniel prompted, pulling me back to the laptop. Right, I said. The interrogation scene. I think Marcus should break first, not Sarah. Interesting, Nathaniel said. Tell me more. And we dove back into the work we loved. Partners in every sense that mattered. Exactly as it should be.